Hello, my name is Ursula Del Mar, and welcome back to my channel. It's been a good minute since I've done a video for Survivor. I kind of stopped doing them when this whole pandemic happened, and I was just like in the middle of, I think episode 4 was the last I uploaded. And then I was like, you know what? I'm gonna take a break because during that part I was also moving, and it was just like a really complicated part, and it was a hot mess. So, but I didn't watch it though. I mean, I kept watching it. I stopped doing the reviews, but I still kept watching it. And I was like debating if I wanted to do this video because I was like, I don't know if I'm feeling it or not. But I was like, you know what? Let's do it because it's the last episode, episode 12, Winners at War. The winner was crowned. So I'm pretty sure that all of you guys have probably watched Survivor by now, and you guys probably know who the winner is. But I'm not gonna spoil it. We will go through all my notes of the episode from beginning to the end. And yes, let's just get right to it. So I pulled out my handy dandy little notes, and let me just read a couple things that I wrote down. First of all, I just wanted to begin with like the beginning of the episode was super weird because since this whole quarantine happened, which I'm watching a couple other shows that are also ending, and since a lot of places can't film because of like large crowds or whatever, I guess that they did it over like Skype or something. I don't know. I found it to be really weird, but apparently at the beginning of the episode they were saying that what were they saying? Oh, that they didn't even have time for a reunion show. So, which they didn't, because like the episode basically started, and then it picked up right where the last episode had finished. So it was so the top five are Sarah, Tony, Ben, Denise, Michelle. And then it kind of basically picks up, and it's a challenge, and basically they are doing the edge of extinction. So the winner of this challenge will get a chance to come back into the game, and the winners are just done, and they become members of the jury. So before they were beginning, Jeff was saying all the people who had advantages, and the person that had the most advantages in the challenge was Natalie, and she had a total of 3 advantages that she had purchased, which that to me is like, wow. Like she only had to do like 25% of that challenge, and I was so shook because I was like, girl, we live for it. So yeah, so then Natalie has 3 advantages. So amazing. And so we go through the whole challenge, and basically Natalie gets caught up in like this in the ropes, and I was just like, girl. It was like a nail biter from like the beginning to the end, but at the end it's basically Natalie and I forget who else. But Natalie ends up pulling the win, so she gets to go back into the game. So now it is Sarah, Tony, Ben, Denise, Michelle, and Natalie. And honestly, can I say this is like, it was like when I was watching this, I was like, oh my god, yes, she won. So thankful that she did win because I wanted her to be like in the top in the finale ever since like she was the first one like voted out. If not, I honestly, if she wasn't the first one voted out, I mean, if she wasn't, I wanted her to win. Like, I still want her to win regardless. There we go. I just had it such on my lip. I still want her to win regardless, but I feel like it's going to be really hard for her to win because she would basically have to do the same, follow basically the exact same path that Chris did from, I think, season 38 just last year, where he came back from the edge, and then he used his idol, and then his game was impeccable. He did the best that he could do within that short amount of time. And I feel like that's what basically Natalie has to do in order for her to get the crown. So as soon as she gets into camp, which I thought was really funny, so like not even like 5 minutes, she's basically throwing Tony under the bus, saying that the jury thinks that he is the one that's gonna win based on like their perception, which at this point is like basically correct because Tony's the one who has decided who's going home and he's just been on top of his game. But when Natalie's saying all of this, it kind of gets Sarah's Sarah's head turning, and she's like, "Well, what if Natalie? There is some truth to that, because at this point, she's kind of like, she's like, oh my god, I'm just being seen as someone who's helping Tony instead of being someone who's influencing the game, and that to her is like no. So, and yeah, she just doesn't want it. It's like there was like this huge storyline starting to develop through that episode where it was like where Sarah was like, oh, I don't want them to think that this guy and this man like Tony is in charge and he's the one who's like dictating like everything when it has been like a two situation. It had been both of them. So we go to the immunity challenge next, and then it is like an obstacle course basically. So basically Michelle is like all the way at the bottom. She's very last. So then she's like the last one to like get all the way up those stairs, and she's the last one at her puzzle. So everyone has a good like at least like 10-15 minutes or something like that. They have a good start on it. And then so as soon as she gets up there, she's like 5 minutes into like the puzzle and she's already like done with the first level, then she gets done with the second level, and then she gets done with the third, and she like pulls the win out of nowhere, and I was just like, yes girl, yes. So we live for that. So Michelle ends up winning immunity, so that is perfect because at this point Michelle won immunity, and then Natalie has her idol, so she can play her idol and they will both be safe. And honestly at this point I want both of them in the top 3, if not like one of them to win it. So we head over to tribal council. So like, I mean, I'll quickly glance over. So at some point they go back to the beach, and then Tony's like, well, what if Natalie has an idol? We should vote for Denise instead. Otherwise we might get screwed and our idols might get flushed out. But then Ben and Sarah are like, no, let's not do that. You're just being paranoid. I think that we'll be fine. So then we get to tribal council, and then there's this huge like discussion about like gender bias on Survivor, and just like, and then like overall just like society and everything. Basically, like Sarah starts talking about how she kind of regrets like feeling bad about the game that she played, because she was like, well, I shouldn't be painted as like being X, Y, and Z because like guys play the same way and they don't really get like these negative stereotypes associated with them, which is true, which is very much true. So she's like, so I've been kind of like stuck in being really hard on myself, but now I'm like free to like play as who I want to play and just not really care, which I thought was really empowering and a really good story, and also like a really good kind of like sticker for her resume, you know? So I thought this whole like, it was like very cute. And then she was like, I'm kind of like done and over it. And then she was like, Jeff, call me Lucina, which I thought was like, love it. Because I think it's been like one other girl that he's got referred to by last name, and that's Wigglesworth. So yeah, they don't think Natalie has an idol. So then at this point, they go to voting. Natalie plays her idol. She doesn't have any votes. So then Tony gets up, plays his idol, which Ben is like, well, I'm just going to play my idol. So then they play his idol. But it didn't even matter because, wait, okay, no, it does matter. So basically, all the idols cancel each other out, and they have to go to a revote between Sarah and Denise because everyone else had idols and no one else was eligible to vote. And if they do end up tying, then they have to go to fire making challenge. So then they decide to just cut Denise loose. I think that Natalie and Michelle decided to cut Denise first because like they figured that they would have more of a chance with Sarah. So Denise is eliminated in a first ever Survivor where there was like no original votes valid, so they had to go to recasting, which I thought was really interesting and like a really nice fitting way to wrap up like the final 6. So then we go back. We fast forward a little bit, and then to the next challenge, where it ends up that Tony wins immunity. Yes, because they had revoked because of idols. So then Tony wins immunity, and then which, so then at this point, Denise is voted out. So then they go to the next tribal, not the next, not the next tribal council. They go to the next immunity challenge in which Tony ends up winning. So then Sarah's like, okay, then I am gonna try and like get them convinced that I'm switching sides. So then she pulls Natalie to the side over to the well, and then they start talking. But over by the well is where Tony has his spy nest. So he's up there, climbed up, snuggled on his little branch, trying to like eavesdrop on what Natalie and Sarah are talking about. So while they're talking, um, Sarah notices Natalie's hidden immunity idol in her bandana. So she is like, "What's that?" And then Natalie comes clean. She's like, "I have an idol." So then, Sarah goes and tells Ben. So then they're trying to figure out like a way. And then Ben's like, "Oh, you should just vote me out so you can use that on your resume. But if you're voting me out, then you have to win the whole game." Which I thought was really interesting and really like heartfelt was the fact that he was willing to sacrifice himself just so Sarah can move ahead. But he was like, "You do have to win, though." So basically, they have this heart moment, which is it's gonna be like the only way that they're guaranteed to move on. I guess I don't know. Like I found it like a really weird way, but I think it's because Ben must have wanted a resume to start building for Sarah if she made it there, so then she would win. Because at this point, I think they were each other's closest allies. Okay, so we go back to Tribal Council, and this episode was moving around so quick, so fast. Like I had to watch it like twice, and even like the second time, I was like kind of like spacing in and out. But besides that, it was like jam packed. So we go back to Sarah, and then Sarah corrects Jeff again, and she was like Lucina, which I actually even forgot too, because I started writing my notes as Sarah, but then I switched into Lucina. So then they're going about like this whole tribal council about like relationships and about like around this time around of what their journey was, which I thought was like a really interesting like beginning to wrap up the season, like putting little bows on everything. It's really cute. So we go to the votes, and then Natalie ends up playing her idol for herself instead of Michelle, which in my opinion she should have like played it for Michelle, and just she should have played it for Michelle in order for Michelle to receive no votes. But she played it on herself and she received no votes. Michelle got 2 votes, and then Ben got 3 votes. So I believe that it was Natalie, Michelle, and Sarah that voted for Ben. So he is voted out. And basically, that was, in my opinion, that was Natalie's first mistake. Because, so, one, she played the idol incorrectly, which makes her look bad. And she didn't get any votes. And Michelle got votes, which was her closest ally. And it made Ben's target of going home, because she misplayed the idol, it made Ben's going home. It made it seem like it was Sarah's plan instead of being Natalie's. So then Natalie doesn't get another point. You know, she's like, at this point, Natalie has misplayed twice, and I don't think that she has the like her resume. Like, sure, she stayed on extinction for like I don't know how many days, like 38 or not 38. At this point, she was at the edge of extinction for 36 days, and I mean, she was a beast with the competition. She got like so many advantages, and it was just watching her on extinction was like amazing to watch because I was like, you are like definitely like endurance. And I don't know, I was just really disappointed when she misplayed her idol and she didn't play for Michelle, because Michelle received 2 votes and she just looks a little dumb. and it just brings down her points to win. And at this point, Natalie doesn't have any room to misplay, because if she does, she's not going to win the million or the 2 million. Tony wins. This is where he won. So yeah, so then we fast forward to the last immunity challenge, and it is something that to know was really funny. I think that Jeff had said that this challenge was played like three, well, the past, there was 3 winners that played it at the top 4, and the 3 winners ended up going to win their season, and I was just like, ooh, that is a really good like up the stakes. So then the first person that's voted, or not the first person, the first person to drop their ball is Tony. So Tony ends up dropping it. So he can't be in the running to be safe. So everyone else, then it's basically down to Michelle and Natalie. So Natalie ends up winning the final immunity, and I was like, yes, very much deserving. Which at this point she's mimicking very much so Chris's like the same thing. Like they both came back from the edge. They both had a hidden immunity idol. They both won. So at this point, she is set to be in the top 3. Like, which is where it goes to the so Natalie wins immunity. So then she has to pick 2 people to make fire. So she picks Michelle to be sitting next to her in the final 2, therefore forcing Tony and Lucina to make fire, ending the alliance of 4, which is something that Natalie wanted to do since I guess she was in exile, because that was like a really big thing of her like speech. So she basically makes Lucina and Tony make fire, in which Tony ends up winning. But after that, because like at this point, Tony and Lucina had like really had like this Cops Are Us relationship, and their story arcs had really been building. So at this point, I don't feel like she should have like gave her spot up and given it to Michelle, and then Michelle picking Sarah in order for her to go up against Tony, because I think that would be the only way for her to play an impeccable game and for her to win. But she was saying that she did want to break the alliance up, and that was one of her bigger concerns. So, but I didn't like it because it ended up creating more of a story arc for Tony or Sarah, whoever won the fire making challenge. And of course, it ends up being Tony. So Tony wins, and then at the end, Sarah's basically gives this really long speech about how Tony was a good person and he deserves to be in their top 3, and they're lucky that they got to face each other one-on-one, like with fire making. And it just builds, like at this point when I was watching this, I was like, oh, Tony's winning this, definitely. Like he has to win it. Like the writing is on the wall at this point, because I mean Sarah's speech was like marvelous, and I was like, okay, I would vote for Tony, and he should definitely win. So Lucina goes home. Tragic. Final member of the jury. That leaves the final 3 being Natalie, Tony, and Michelle. So just a quick down things that I wrote down from the tribal, the last final tribal council. I feel like with this last tribal council, like it closes like a chapter of like 40 seasons of Survivor, and therefore opens like another one. So I'm kind of excited what they're gonna do with future seasons. So basically, in this episode, just any points that I just wrote down was that Tony never got any votes rated against him. His name was always off, never mentioned, never written. And Tony, throughout this whole thing, he was like playing the jury. The jury was like crackling for him. A couple times he cut off Natalie, and Natalie couldn't even like say what she was gonna say. So, which I thought was really interesting. And then Natalie was a beast at the edge of extinction. She ended up getting an advantage. She ended up like sending back to the game 6 advantages or 6 disadvantage or like 6 total edge twists. She ended up like being in, and she ended up getting like numerous fire tokens. So she was like literally like influencing tribal council every other week. She had something that to me was like so amazing, like so impeccable. Like Natalie should have won, and I feel like she would have won had she played her cards right at the last stretch. Like her game from like the moment she was voted out until she came back in was impeccable, marvelous, everything. But then after that, it just kind of it fell apart. Like in the last 15 minutes, like it kind of fell apart, and I like feel. Uh, I'm a huge fan of Natalie, if you can't tell. Mm. And okay, so she also Natalie also mentioned that it would not be in her best interest to go up against Tony in fire making because she did not feel like she would beat him. But I was like, you should have tried. I feel like she should have tried. She should have done it or die trying, you know. And Tony just mentioned that he was looking for idols at night while no one else noticed or cared because he was playing such a good double game. Natalie ends up getting 4 votes in the final jury, and then Tony ends up getting the rest. He ends up winning, becoming the king of Survivor. And then we have a queen also. We have Sandra, and now the king, Tony. In my opinion, he did deserve to win. Between him, Michelle, and Natalie, yeah, he deserved to win. And that was an amazing season to watch. I'm glad that I watched it live. This was my first season of Survivor that I ever watched live, and it couldn't be a better season. I'm sorry that I didn't do episodes 5 through 11, but maybe one day I'll come back and like finish that series. But until then, has been Ursula Delmar, and thank you guys so much for watching this. I will probably be back whenever Survivor's back. Well, I have more videos, but they're like makeup and other kind of related. But I'll be back reviewing Survivor definitely when it's back on. Hopefully, I'll know and I'll be a little bit more better with video production and just being on camera, speaking about stuff that I love. If you want to like, subscribe, or whatever, it's all Ursula Delmar.